Before kingdoms rose and empires fell, before the stars were numbered or the seas were named, there was a covenant, etched not on stone, but in the very fabric of creation. It was sealed in thunder upon a mountain, guarded by fire, and carried through deserts and wars, dreams and blood. The Ark of the Covenant, a vessel of divine power, a throne of the invisible, a door between heaven and earth. For generations, it was the heartbeat of a wandering nation, the banner of their battles, the hush of their worship. But then it vanished, stolen into shadow, whispered of in fear, hunted by those who sought to use it, and forgotten by those too afraid to remember. Until now, this is the story of Eliab, a boy born of holy blood, a Levite with nothing but a prayer and a purpose, chosen by destiny to become the last guardian of the Arkansas. When the sacred relic disappears into the hands of pagans and sorcerers, he must journey beyond the edge of the known world, through ruins of fallen gods and forests that remember the first breath of the world. With each step, he will face trials carved in shadow and flame, forge alliances with creatures of wonder, and unlock secrets that tremble with celestial fire. But the greatest trial lies not beyond, but within. For the Ark does not only hold power, it reveals it. It judges the soul of its keeper. And so begins an odyssey of faith and fire, of light born in darkness, of a boy who dares to carry the covenant of eternity. This is the guardian of the Ark. Chapter 1. The Whisper of Shiloh. The morning wind stirred the tents of Shiloh, carrying whispers of ancient secrets and distant prayers. Beneath the golden rays, the tabernacle stood silent, its veiled chambers hiding the most sacred treasure, the Ark of the Covenant, a chest of gold and wood, but far more than a mere relic. It was said to hold the very presence of the Almighty, a power that shaped destinies. Eliab, a young Levite barely come of age, moved quietly through the dusty courtyard. His hands were rough from service, his heart heavy with unspoken doubts. He wore the linen robe of his house, but beneath it, a storm brewed. How could he, a mere boy, be trusted to guard something so holy? The high priest summoned him that day with a serious voice. You are chosen, not by men, but by the presence itself, to guard the Arkansas. Eliab's breath caught. The weight of the words pressed on his chest, steady and unyielding. He barely dared to hope, yet he knew his life had changed forever. That night, a strange light pulsed from within the Holy of Holies. Thunder echoed across the cloudless sky, and by dawn, the Ark had vanished. Chaos erupted in the camp. Priests wailed, elders tore their robes in despair. Rumors flew like arrows, Philistines' betrayal, dark curses. The high priest placed an ivory staff in Eliab's trembling hands. Find it before they do, he commanded. Eliab left before the sun, stepping alone into the wilderness. Armed with faith, the staff, and a few barley cakes, he followed strange signs. A scorched patch of earth where no fire should burn, giant footprints in the dust, birds that sang backwards. Visions haunted his dreams. A door of thunder, a voice speaking in tongues unknown, a lion with golden wings. At twilight, a woman appeared at the mouth of a cave, cloaked in starlight, her eyes ancient as Sinai. You seek the Ark, she said softly. To claim it, you must pass the trial of fire, and not be consumed. Fear gripped Eliab, but he stepped forward into the darkness. Inside, torches burned without smoke, casting shadows of beasts and angels on the walls. Whispers of doubt and pride slithered like serpents in the cold air. He knelt, praying without words, summoning every ounce of faith. Then came the flame, not of this world, but pure and fierce. It surged toward him, a living force. He did not flee. He knelt. The flame passed through him. His robes were untouched, but his eyes were changed forever. He had glimpsed the veil between worlds and heard the echo of the name. The guardian bowed, offering a scroll glowing with soft light. Take this, she said. Others will come, hunters, warlocks, kings. Only one who walks in the light shall see the Ark unveiled. Eliab grasped the scroll. It pulsed like a heartbeat in his hands. Above, the stars wheeled in an ancient dance. In his chest, a calling awoke, not of flesh, but of eternity. The guardian of the ark had begun his watch. Chapter 2. Shadows over Gath. The desert stretched endlessly before Eliab, a barren sea of cracked earth and blazing sun, where the wind whispered forgotten secrets. Every grain of sand seemed alive with the echo of ancient battles and long-lost prayers. His footsteps stirred the dust as he ventured deeper into lands shadowed by fear and whispered curses. The glowing scroll in his hand pulsed softly, a faint beacon of hope amid the gathering darkness. He approached the gates of Gath as twilight bled into night, the city's silhouette jagged against a bruised sky. The air was thick with smoke, sweat, and the scent of fermented wine. Streets teemed with wary eyes, furtive glances, and whispers of unseen dangers. The city was alive, but alive with menace. Eliab's heart hammered as he crossed the threshold, feeling the weight of countless gazes piercing him like arrows. The people here knew of the Ark, or at least of the legends that haunted its name. Few spoke openly, but their fear was palpable. Merchants with sharpened knives hid beneath their cloaks, and children scattered when they saw the young Levites' determined stride. He moved toward the old temple of the city's heart, once devoted to forgotten gods, now reduced to crumbling stone and faded carvings. Shadows clung to its walls, and a chill wind moaned through the empty courtyards. There, among shattered pillars, stood an ancient figure, a man whose eyes held the wisdom of centuries and the weariness of many battles. "You seek the Ark," the stranger said, his voice low and gravelly. "Few dare to chase such a prize. Fewer return." Eliab nodded, gripping the glowing scroll tighter. "It is my burden, my destiny. I must find it before it falls into the wrong hands." The old man's smile was thin, edged with sadness. The Ark is no mere treasure. It is a gateway, an ancient portal between worlds. To possess it is to hold a fragment of divine power, but also to invite shadows darker than any you have known. Before Eliab could reply, a scream shattered the stillness. From dark alleys emerged a group of cloaked figures, their eyes burning with malevolence, their hands weaving cruel spells born from long-forgotten curses. These were the hunters, the warlocks and sorcerers who sought the Ark's power for their own dark designs. Eliab raised his staff, feeling a surge of power coursing through him from the scroll's light. The battle was fierce. Spells met prayers. Shadows tangled with beams of radiant energy. His strikes were wild and desperate, but fueled by a newfound courage. He fought with every ounce of strength. One by one, his attackers fell, their curses dissolving into the night as the light from his staff burned brighter. When silence finally returned, Eliab stood alone amid the wreckage, breath ragged but unbroken. The old man approached, pressing a small vial into Eliab's hand. "Drink this," he said. "It will protect your spirit from their magic, but not from their relentless will." The liquid was bitter, burning as it slid down Eliab's throat, igniting a fierce warmth that spread through his veins. The scroll's glow intensified, lighting a path beneath the temple, where a hidden stairway spiraled down into unknown depths. With steady resolve, Eliab descended into the darkness, each step echoing with the whispers of forgotten souls and promises of terrible power. The air grew colder, thick with the scent of ancient incense and unspoken danger. At the bottom, the walls pulsed with faint light, and the shadows seemed to dance, alive with secret knowledge. Here, the boundary between worlds thinned, and the true nature of the Ark waited to be revealed. Eliab's heart thundered in his chest as he grasped his staff tighter, preparing for whatever trials lay ahead. For the Ark was close, closer than ever, and its mysteries demanded more than courage. They demanded a sacrifice beyond measure. Chapter 3. The Trial of the Veil. The air in the ancient temple grew colder and heavier as Eliab descended deeper into its hidden heart. Stone walls, worn smooth by centuries of silence, seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Shadows flickered like restless spirits, twisting in the torchlight, whispering forgotten secrets long buried beneath layers of dust and prayer. The scent of ancient incense, resin and myrrh, clung to the air, wrapping around him like a shroud as he moved cautiously forward. The glowing scroll pulsed rhythmically in his hand, its soft light casting eerie patterns on the walls. It was as if the very fabric of the past and present converged in this place, where earth met heaven and mortal touched divine. The carved images on the stone told stories of angels battling monstrous beasts, warriors clad in celestial armor locked in eternal combat. Eliab reached out, his fingers brushing the cold stone, feeling the power that lay dormant beneath the surface. Ahead, a great archway blocked his path. It was carved from a single massive slab of obsidian, its surface smooth and shining like liquid night. The arch shimmered faintly, the edges flickering with a strange light that seemed alive, as if breathing. Etched into the obsidian were ancient runes, characters from a language lost to time. The scroll flared in his hand, the characters glowing faintly as the words translated themselves into a solemn warning. Only the pure of heart may pass the veil. Eliab's heart pounded fiercely, each beat echoing like thunder in his ears. The question burned within him. What did it mean to be pure? Was he worthy of his test? Doubt gnawed at his resolve, memories of his fears and failures clawing at his mind like shadows, seeking to swallow the light. Yet he knew he could not turn back now. The fate of the Ark, and perhaps the world itself, rested on his shoulders. Summoning all his courage, Eliab stepped forward. He raised his ivory staff and touched the obsidian veil. The stone vibrated beneath his fingers, a low hum rising in the air like a chant from the stars themselves. The space before him shimmered, and the veil parted like a curtain of light, revealing a realm unlike anything he had ever seen. Beyond lay a vast expanse of swirling colors and radiant stars, the sky itself alive with motion and mystery. Figures moved silently in the distance, winged beings of both light and shadow, locked in eternal vigil. The air hummed with power, raw and infinite, a place where time folded over itself like waves crashing upon a shore. Eliab took a hesitant step forward, feeling the boundary between worlds dissolve beneath his feet. Each breath he drew felt heavy with wonder and fear. Time seemed to stretch and twist, moments folding upon one another, past and future colliding in a dizzying dance. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cosmic silence. It was gentle, yet filled with authority. "Guardian, why do you seek the Ark?" Eliab steadied himself, his voice steady despite the trembling in his heart. "To protect it from those who would use its power for darkness. To guard the covenant between heaven and earth." The voice was both patient and piercing. "To guard the Ark, you must prove your faith. You must face the trial of the veil." Without warning, the stars coalesced into vivid visions. Memories of Eliab's deepest fears, moments of weakness, mistakes he had hoped to forget. Shadows crept and slithered, wrapping around him like chains, threatening to pull him into an abyss of despair. His knees buckled, but he fought to stand. He closed his eyes and reached deep within, summoning the light that had guided him thus far. A fierce flame kindled in his heart, burning away the shadows with blinding heat. The visions shattered like fragile glass, leaving him alone beneath the vast, infinite sky. The voice returned, softer now, filled with warmth and acceptance. "You have passed, Guardian. The Ark awaits, but your journey is far from over." As the veil closed behind him, Eliab felt a surge of new power rising inside him, a connection to something vast, eternal, and beyond mortal comprehension. He emerged from the temple's depths, the scroll's light shining brighter than ever before. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers unseen and mysteries unspoken, but Eliab knew one undeniable truth. He was no longer a boy lost in fear. He was the guardian of the Ark, and the world would soon know his name. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Night. The city of Gath lay beneath a heavy cloak of darkness, its streets winding like serpents through shadowed alleys and forgotten corners. Eliab emerged from the temple's hidden depths with a heart both burdened and alight. The scroll's glow illuminating his path as flickering torches cast dancing shadows on ancient stone. The night air was thick with whispers, murmurs of secrets carried on the wind, slipping through cracked windows and seeping from beneath closed doors. Eliab moved cautiously, his senses sharpened by the trials he had faced. Every footstep echoed against the worn cobblestones, and every flicker of movement in the shadows held the possibility of danger. The city, once a mere backdrop to his quest, had become a labyrinth of threats and mysteries, where unseen eyes followed his every move. He recalled the old man's words, "The Ark is a portal, but it is also a beacon. It calls out to those who would possess its power." And Eliab knew the hunters were closer than ever. They lurked in the darkness, weaving spells and weaving plots, their intent as sharp and deadly as the blades hidden beneath their cloaks. From the edge of an abandoned market square, a faint sound stirred, soft footsteps, the rustle of fabric, a whispered incantation. Eliab's grip tightened on his staff as a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman cloaked in midnight blue, her eyes glowing faintly with a strange light. "Guardian," she said, her voice like the wind through dead leaves, "you walk a perilous path." Eliab studied her warily. "Who are you, friend or foe?" She smiled, but did not reach her eyes. "I am a keeper of secrets, one who has watched the Ark's journey through time. I come with a warning. The filth that pursues you is more powerful than you realize. They wield dark magic fueled by ancient pacts, and their hunger for the Ark knows no bounds." Eliab nodded, absorbing her words. "I will protect the Ark, no matter the cost." The woman stepped closer, placing a small, intricately carved amulet in his palm. "This will shield you from their eyes, but not from their wrath. Trust no one, not even those who claim to be allies." Before he could reply, the night exploded with chaos. Cries shattered the silence as figures clad in black surged from the alleys, their weapons gleaming with unnatural light. Spells crackled in the air, and Eliab raised his staff, the scroll flaring with radiant power. The battle was fierce. Shadows collided with light, curses met prayers, and the city's ancient stones bore witness to a war fought in silence and shadow. Eliab moved with a determination born of faith and desperation, striking down enemies with bursts of energy that left trails of shimmering light. When the last foe fell, silence returned, broken only by Eliab's heavy breathing. The woman was gone, vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared, leaving behind only the weight of her warning. As dawn approached, Eliab knew his quest was far from over. The Ark's secrets beckoned, and the forces arrayed against him would stop at nothing to claim its power. But Eliab was ready, for he was the guardian, and his destiny was bound to the fate of the Ark itself. Chapter 5. The Echoes of Betrayal. The morning sun had barely pierced the horizon when Eliab found himself standing atop the ancient city walls, overlooking Gath's sprawling labyrinth of stone and shadow. The air was thick with the scent of dust and heat, yet beneath the calm dawn, a storm of unrest churned silently. His heart, heavy with the weight of recent battles, beat steadily as his eyes scanned the streets below for any sign of the hunters. Memories of the previous night's fight still burned fresh within him. The clash of light and shadow, the desperate prayers whispered amidst the chaos. The mysterious woman's warning echoed in his mind, a haunting refrain that stirred doubt and suspicion. Trust no one, not even those who claim to be allies. As Eliab descended from the ramparts, his thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion near the market square. Curious and cautious, he moved toward the noise, only to find a crowd gathered around a man whose words dripped with venom and deceit. It was Malek, a Levite from his own village, once a brother in faith, now a stranger cloaked in ambition. "You seek the Ark," Malak declared loudly, his voice carrying across the square. "But what of the power it promises? What if we could wield it to unite our people and crush our enemies? Why let it slip away to heaven's realm, when it could be ours to command?" Eliab's heart sank. The man's words stirred unrest, and among the crowd, doubt flickered like wildfire. Whispers grew louder, suspicion tainting the very faith that bound them. Could Malak be swayed by darkness? Was this betrayal born of desperation, or of something darker still? Eliab stepped forward, his voice clear and unwavering. "The Ark is not a weapon for conquest, nor a prize for greed. It is a sacred covenant, a bridge between earth and the divine. To misuse, it is to invite destruction upon all." But Malak's eyes burned with something fierce and dangerous. "Your faith blinds you, Eliab. Power is what the world respects, not piety." Tensions flared as the crowd's mood shifted, and Eliab realized the true battle was no longer just for the Ark, but for the hearts and minds of those he once called brothers. The city's shadows deepened, and with them, the threat of betrayal grew ever nearer. Later that night, as Eliab sought refuge beneath the stars, he pondered the fragile line between faith and ambition. The path of the Guardian was lonely, fraught with peril not only from outside foes, but from those within. The scroll's light flickered softly, a reminder of the covenant he had sworn to protect. No matter the cost, Eliab vowed to remain steadfast. For the Ark was more than a relic. It was the very hope of a world balanced precariously between light and darkness. And in this fragile balance, Eliab knew his greatest trials were yet to come. Chapter 6. Shadows of the Forgotten. Night wrapped the city in a shroud of silence. But Eliab's mind was anything but still. The weight of betrayal pressed on his chest, heavy and relentless. The faces of those who had once stood beside him haunted his thoughts, now twisted by greed and doubt. Trust was a fragile thing, breaking easily beneath the harsh winds of ambition. He retreated to a secluded chamber within the temple, its walls etched with ancient symbols that pulsed faintly in the dim light. The scroll, still glowing softly in his hands, seemed to thrum with a power that was both comforting and terrifying. Eliab laid it carefully on the altar and knelt, closing his eyes to seek guidance beyond the mortal realm. In the stillness, a whisper rose, soft, like the rustle of leaves in a long-forgotten forest. The voice spoke of old promises and ancient pacts, of shadows lurking where light dared not tread. It spoke of the forgotten ones, spirits bound to the Ark's fate, guardians cast out from the heavens for defying the eternal order. Eliab's breath caught. Could these be the true watchers behind the veil, the silent sentinels who held secrets that even the divine feared? The scroll's light flickered violently, as if responding to his thoughts, and a vision unfolded before him. He saw vast halls of shimmering crystal, suspended in endless space, where spectral figures moved like echoes of time itself. They were neither fully alive nor dead, trapped between worlds, their eyes reflecting sorrow and warning. Among them, a figure cloaked in shadow stepped forward, an ancient guardian whose gaze pierced through Eliab's very soul. "You seek to protect the Ark," the figure intoned, voice like thunder and silk. "But beware the cost. The path you walk is narrow, and the shadows grow longer with every step. The forgotten ones will test your resolve, and only the true guardian shall prevail." Eliab awoke with a start, the vision fading but the weight of its message lingering. The Ark was not only a key to divine realms, but a nexus of power that attracted forces beyond mortal understanding, forces that would stop at nothing to claim it. Determined, he rose, the scroll's light now steady and strong. His journey was far from over. The trials were mounting, and the line between friend and foe blurred into shadow. Yet Eliab's faith burned brighter than ever, for he was the guardian, the chosen custodian of a sacred covenant, and he would face whatever darkness awaited to protect the light within the Ark. Chapter 7. The Hidden Sanctuary. Eliab's footsteps echoed hollowly through the twisting corridors beneath the city, where shadows clung like cobwebs to ancient stone. The temple's lower chambers, long forgotten by most, held secrets whispered only in the dead of night. It was here, in the depths where the light dared not linger, that Eliab sought answers that might unlock the mysteries of the Ark and the terrible power it contained. His breath rose in soft clouds, mingling with the cold, stale air. The flickering torch in his hand cast quivering shadows on the walls, where faint carvings of angels and beasts wove a silent tapestry of forgotten lore. Each step drew him further into the heart of the sanctuary, deeper than any had ventured for centuries. The air grew heavier with every pace, thick with a presence both ancient and watchful. Eliab's fingers brushed over the carvings, symbols of protection and warning, blessings and curses. The echoes of long-past prayers seemed to pulse beneath the stone, a rhythm that matched the pounding of his own heart. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, its vaulted ceiling lost in darkness. In the center stood an altar of black stone, polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflecting the torchlight in eerie patterns. Upon it rested a single object, the Heartstone, a gem said to hold the memories of the first guardians, a relic that had long been lost to time. Eliab approached cautiously, aware that such a treasure could be both a blessing and a curse. The stories told that the Heartstone was a key, not only to unlocking the Ark's celestial secrets, but also to awakening powers that mortals were never meant to wield. His hand trembled as he reached out, the gem's surface cool and smooth beneath his fingertips. As he lifted the Heartstone, a surge of energy rippled through the chamber, shaking dust from the ancient walls. The torchlight flared, and the shadows seemed to dance with sudden life. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed in the silence, an ethereal chant in a language older than memory. Bearer of the covenant, chosen among men, heed the call of the forgotten ones. Within you lies the power to bind the heavens and the earth, but beware, the path is fraught with peril and sacrifice. Eliab's eyes widened. The Heartstone pulsed in his palm, glowing with a light that seemed to seep into his very veins. He understood, then, that his journey was no longer just about guarding the Ark. It was about becoming part of something far greater, a living link in a chain forged between the mortal and the divine. Suddenly, a faint sound disturbed the silence. A whisper carried on the wind, the rustle of footsteps approaching. Eliab's grip tightened around the Heartstone as a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked and silent. "You should not be here," the stranger said, voice cold as the night air. "The secrets you seek will cost you more than you can imagine." Eliab stood firm. "I am a guardian. I will bear whatever cost is necessary." The stranger stepped forward, revealing a face marked by years of hardship and eyes that gleamed with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Then prepare yourself, for the trials ahead will test not only your strength, but your very soul. The fate of the Ark, and perhaps the world, depends on your courage." With those words hanging heavy in the air, the stranger vanished back into the shadows, leaving Eliab alone with the Heartstone and the weight of a destiny that stretched beyond time itself. Chapter 8. The Trial of Fire. The dawn broke slowly over Gath, casting long beams of pale light through the cracked windows of the temple chamber, where Eliab sat with the Heartstone resting heavily in his palm. The gem's gentle pulse echoed a heartbeat not his own, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the breath of the earth itself. Yet beneath the calm surface, a storm brewed, a challenge looming on the horizon that would test every fiber of his being. Eliab rose and moved to the altar, the ancient scroll spread before him like a map of fate. The cryptic symbols twisted and shifted under his gaze, revealing paths and warnings woven in ink and mystery. The knowledge of the forgotten ones whispered from the parchment, urging him toward a trial that lay hidden beneath the city's fiery heart, the trial of fire. Legends told of this trial as a crucible of spirit and flesh, where those deemed worthy would walk through flames not to perish, but to emerge reborn, cleansed of doubt and strengthened in purpose. Many had sought it, but none had returned to speak of its true nature. Determined, Eliab descended through secret passageways etched into the bedrock, guided by the scroll's shifting runes and the faint warmth growing beneath his feet. The air grew hotter with every step, charged with an ancient power that crackled like lightning in a brewing storm. At last, he reached a cavern vast and alive with molten rivers that flowed like veins of the earth itself. The cavern's walls glowed with fiery runes, burning bright with the memory of trials long past. Eliab's heart thundered, but he stepped forward, the heartstone glowing fiercely against his chest. The flames rose as he approached, but instead of fear, a strange calm filled his soul. He breathed deeply, chanting words of protection and faith, and the fire parted before him like a living gate. The heat kissed his skin but did not burn. The fire was no mere element, but a guardian, testing his resolve. As he crossed the molten path, visions flickered before his eyes. Faces of those who had fallen, voices of those who had doubted, shadows of betrayal and hope intertwined. Each step was a battle against despair, a reminder that his quest was as much within as it was without. Halfway through, the flames roared with sudden fury, swirling into a vortex that threatened to consume him. Eliab raised the heartstone, its light piercing the inferno like a beacon of salvation. A blast of radiant energy surged outward, quelling the storm of fire and illuminating the cavern with a divine glow. Emerging on the other side, Eliab collapsed to his knees, sweat and ash clinging to his skin. The trial had not broken him. It had forged him anew. The heartstone now blazed with an intense light, a symbol of his transformation and the power he had earned. Yet, even as he caught his breath, a new shadow stirred beyond the cavern's edge, a presence watching, waiting, its intentions unknown but undeniably dark. The trial of fire was over, but the journey had only just begun. Chapter 9. The Veil of Illusions. Eliab stepped out from the fiery cavern into the pale light of dawn, his body weary, but his spirit ablaze with newfound strength. The air outside was cool and crisp, a sharp contrast to the searing heat of the trial of fire. Yet, despite the calm, an uneasy stillness hung over the city, as if the world itself held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The heartstone pulsed steadily against his chest, a constant reminder of the power he now carried and the burden it entailed. As he made his way through the narrow streets of Gath, Eliab noticed subtle changes. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, and whispers echoed from empty corners, weaving threads of doubt and fear into the minds of those around him. He knew then that the next trial awaited him, not of fire or battle, but of the mind and soul. The Veil of Illusions, a realm where reality bent and twisted, where truth and falsehood danced in an endless masquerade. Only by piercing this veil could Eliab hope to uncover the true path to protecting the Ark. Entering the ancient temple once more, Eliab found himself drawn to a hidden chamber adorned with delicate mosaics that shimmered in the fading light. As he crossed the threshold, the walls seemed to ripple like water, and the world around him dissolved into a swirling mist of color and sound. Visions assaulted his senses, faces of loved ones lost, voices of enemies turned allies, promises broken and hopes reborn. Each illusion was crafted with meticulous care, designed to lure him into despair or complacency. Eliab's grip tightened on the heartstone, its steady glow anchoring him to reality. One vision was particularly vivid, a radiant city bathed in golden light, where the Ark stood unveiled, its power wielded by those who promised peace but whispered secrets of domination. The temptation to accept this illusion was strong, but Eliab's faith held firm. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer, the words a shield against deception. The mist thickened and a figure emerged, a woman cloaked in silver, her eyes shimmering with ancient wisdom and sorrow. "Guardian," she said, her voice like a gentle breeze. The veil reveals not only truth but the fears hidden within. To protect the ark, you must confront your own shadows. Eliab nodded, understanding the unspoken challenge. The illusions were more than tricks. They were reflections of his deepest doubts and regrets. He steeled himself, stepping forward to face the darkness within. Memories of failure and loss surged forth. Faces of those he could not save, moments of hesitation that had cost dearly. The pain was sharp, but Eliab embraced it, knowing that only through acceptance could he move beyond. As the veil lifted, clarity returned. The chamber solidified, and the silver-cloaked woman smiled softly before fading into the light. Eliab stood alone but resolute, his spirit tempered by truth and courage. Outside, the city breathed once more, unaware of the silent battle waged in shadows and dreams. Eliab's journey was far from over, but with each trial, he drew closer to the destiny woven into the very fabric of the ark. The veil was lifted, but the path ahead remained shrouded in mystery and peril. Chapter 10. The Covenant's Burden. The morning sun spilled golden rays over the rugged hills surrounding Gath, yet Eliab felt the weight of a world pressing down upon his shoulders. The trials he had faced, the fiery crucible, the veil of illusions, had forged him into something more than a mere guardian. Yet, with power came responsibility, and the burden of the covenant settled deep within his soul like an unyielding stone. In the heart of the city, the ancient temple stood as a sentinel of forgotten promises and sacred oaths. Eliab entered its vast halls with measured steps, the soft rustle of his robes the only sound amidst the whispering echoes of prayers long past. The scroll, now worn at the edges but radiant with divine light, was his constant companion, a guide and a reminder of the sacred trust bestowed upon him. As he approached the altar, a figure awaited, a priestess garbed in flowing white, her eyes pools of calm wisdom and quiet strength. "Guardian," she greeted, her voice gentle yet resolute. "The covenant you bear is not merely a shield against our enemies, but a pact with the heavens. Its power is bound to the purity of your heart and the courage of your spirit." Eliab nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "Understand, the ark is more than a relic. It is a bridge between our world and the divine. To protect it is to protect the hope of all our people." The priestess stepped closer, placing a delicate hand upon his shoulder. "But beware, for the covenant demands sacrifice. There are those who would see it broken, who hunger for the chaos that would follow." Suddenly, the temple doors burst open, and shadows spilled inside. Malak, once a brother in faith, now a figure twisted by ambition and desperation, stepped forward. His eyes gleamed with dark resolve as he raised a dagger forged in secrets and lies. "You speak of hope," Malak hissed, "but power belongs to those willing to seize it. The ark's light can blind or burn. Choose which side you stand on, guardian." Eliab's heart raced, but his voice remained steady. "I stand with the covenant, with the truth it represents. You seek to wield the ark for your own ends, but its power is not for conquest." The priestess moved swiftly, her hands glowing with ancient light as she conjured a shield around Eliab. The air crackled with energy as light clashed against shadow, the temple becoming a battleground of faith and fury. Malak lunged, but Eliab met him with the strength born of trials endured. The clash of steel and spirit echoed through the hallowed halls, a dance of destiny where every strike carried the weight of worlds. As the fight raged, Eliab felt the covenant's power surge through him, a radiant force that bound him to the ark and to the very essence of his purpose. With a final cry, he disarmed Malak, the dagger skittering across the stone floor. Breathing heavily, Eliab looked into Malak's eyes and saw not hatred, but the shattered remains of a man consumed by fear and longing. "There is still a path to redemption," Eliab said quietly. "Choose it before it is too late." Malak hesitated, torn between darkness and the flicker of light that still lingered within. The temple's silence returned, thick with unspoken truths and fragile hope. The covenant's burden was heavy, but Eliab knew that as long as he bore it, the ark and the future it guarded remained safe. Chapter 11. The Whispering Winds. The winds of the desert carried secrets as old as time itself, rustling through the brittle grasses and whispering across the crumbled walls of ancient ruins. Eliab stood upon a rocky outcrop overlooking the vast expanse, the heartstone glowing softly beneath his cloak, its pulse a steady beacon against the gathering dusk. The trials had changed him. His eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now mirrored a fierce determination, tempered by the lessons carved into his soul by fire and illusion. Yet, this new chapter of his journey beckoned him toward a horizon shadowed by unseen foes and forgotten magics. He descended into the valley below, where the ruins of a forgotten temple lay buried beneath centuries of sand and silence. The air was thick with the scent of earth and mystery, and Eliab felt the faint tug of a presence, a stirring deep within the fabric of the world. Approaching the temple's fractured entrance, he noticed glyphs etched into the stone, symbols of protection and warning, fading but resolute against the passage of time. The heartstone pulsed in response, its light weaving threads of ancient energy that seemed to breathe life into the worn carvings. Inside, the darkness was alive. Soft murmurs brushed past his ears, voices caught between the realms of the living and the dead. The whispering winds carried fragments of forgotten prayers and warnings, swirling around him like restless spirits seeking release. Eliab moved forward cautiously, each step stirring echoes from the past. At the chamber's heart lay an altar, cracked but intact, upon which rested a scroll bound in faded leather. The script shimmered with a light that was neither earthly nor divine, a language spoken only by those who walked the path between worlds. As he unrolled the scroll, visions flooded his mind. Memories of the first guardians, battles fought beneath star-streaked skies, and a prophecy etched in time. But the Ark's true power could only be unlocked by one who embraced both light and shadow, courage and doubt. The winds swirled faster, whispering warnings of betrayal and sacrifice. Eliab's breath caught as the air thickened, and from the shadows emerged a figure draped in dark robes, eyes glinting with cold intent. "You seek the truth, guardian," the stranger said, voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "But some truths carry a price heavier than you can bear." Eliab's hand instinctively rested on the heartstone. "I will pay whatever price is necessary to protect the Arkansas." A slow smile curved the stranger's lips. "Very well, then prepare yourself, for the whispering winds carry not only secrets but storms yet to come." With that, the figure vanished into the swirling shadows, leaving Eliab alone with the weight of prophecy and the howling desert winds outside. The journey grew darker still, but Eliab's resolve burned brighter. For he was the guardian, the last hope against the rising tide of shadow. Chapter 12. The Shadow's Embrace. Night fell like a velvet shroud over the land, swallowing the remnants of daylight and cloaking the world in an abyss of silence. Eliab moved through the dense forest, each step measured and cautious, the heartstone's faint glow barely piercing the thick canopy above. The shadows here were alive, thick with ancient magic and whispered threats, as if the very trees conspired to test the guardian's will. The path twisted and turned, leading deeper into the unknown. The air grew colder, and a creeping dread settled over Eliab's heart. The trials so far had strengthened him, but now he faced a darkness more insidious, a shadow that did not burn with flame, but with the cold bite of fear and despair. Suddenly, a chill swept through the clearing, and from the darkness emerged figures, silent, spectral forms, their eyes hollow voids that reflected the faint light of the heartstone. They moved like mist, circling Eliab with silent accusation and sorrow. Eliab tightened his grip on the heartstone, its pulse quickening as if recognizing the threat. He closed his eyes and summoned the prayers taught to him since childhood, words of light and protection. The spirits recoiled slightly, but their presence remained, heavy and unyielding. A voice echoed through the forest, deep and resonant, reverberating through the trees like a funeral toll. Guardian, you walk the edge of oblivion. To embrace the shadow is to face your own soul's darkness. Are you prepared to confront what lies within? Eliab opened his eyes, the glow of the heartstone illuminating his determined face. I have no choice. To protect the ark, I must face the darkness within me and beyond. The spirits swirled tighter, their forms becoming more defined, faces twisted in pain, eyes filled with regret and longing. Eliab felt their sorrow seep into his bones, a weight he could scarcely bear. But he stood firm, breathing steadily, letting the light of the heartstone fill the void. As the night deepened, a brilliant light erupted from the gem, casting away the spectral forms in a burst of pure radiance. The forest fell silent, the oppressive chill lifted, replaced by a serene calm. Eliab knew this was but a glimpse of the shadows yet to come. The embrace of darkness was inevitable, but with each confrontation, his spirit grew stronger, forged anew by fire and shadow alike. He pressed onward, heart steady, for the Guardian's path was never meant to be easy. The ark's fate, and the fate of all, rested upon his shoulders. Chapter 13. The Labyrinth of Forgotten Echoes. The moon hung high above the land, casting a silver glow that filtered through the twisted branches of the ancient forest. Eliab's footsteps crunched softly on the leaf-strewn path, each echo swallowed quickly by the vast silence that surrounded him. The labyrinth ahead was not made of stone or walls, but of memories, echoes of the past, long buried and now rising to challenge his very soul. As he approached the threshold, a chill wind swept through the trees, carrying with it faint whispers, voices of those who had come before, their hopes and fears entwined in the fabric of the labyrinth. The heartstone at his chest pulsed steadily, its light dim but unwavering, a beacon against the creeping shadows of doubt. Eliab took a deep breath and stepped into the maze of forgotten echoes. Immediately, the world shifted. The trees blurred and twisted, their forms warping into shapes both familiar and strange. Around him, visions flickered to life, moments from his own past, memories long suppressed, tangled with the stories of strangers whose lives had been swallowed by time. He saw himself as a boy, wide-eyed and uncertain, standing at the edge of a river, watching as the currents carried leaves downstream. The innocent hope of that child clashed with the hardened resolve of the man he had become. Questions stirred in his heart. Was he worthy of the task? Could one man carry the weight of a covenant older than the stars? The labyrinth tested him further, revealing scenes of failure and loss. Faces of those he loved, now distant ghosts, whispered accusations and regrets. Shadows of doubt clawed at his resolve, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of faith he clung to. Yet, amid the turmoil, a faint light flickered. The heartstone's glow grew stronger, a steady warmth spreading through his chest. Eliab closed his eyes and reached deep within, summoning the courage born from every trial faced, every step taken. A voice, ancient and kind, echoed through the labyrinth's winding paths. Guardian, the echoes you hear are not chains, but the voices of strength. They remind you that you're not alone. Every step forward is a victory over the past. Opening his eyes, Eliab saw the shadows begin to dissolve, replaced by a path of shimmering light leading him onward. The labyrinth was a test of spirit, a journey through the self, and he was emerging not as a broken man, but as a beacon of hope. With renewed determination, he pressed forward, the whispers fading in his silence, replaced by the steady heartbeat of the heartstone, his guide through the darkness, toward the destiny waiting beyond. Chapter 14. The Trials of the Eternal Flame. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting hues of crimson and gold across the sky, Eliab found himself standing before the towering gates of the Temple of the Eternal Flame. This sacred place, whispered of in legends and guarded by the fiercest of spirits, held the final trial before the guardian could claim his full destiny. The air was thick with ancient power, a tangible energy that hummed beneath his skin and stirred the very earth beneath his feet. The gates slowly parted, revealing a vast courtyard paved with stones worn smooth by the footsteps of countless seekers who had come before him, many never to return. The scent of burning incense mingled with the sharp tang of molten metal from forges hidden deep within the temple's heart. This trial would test more than Eliab's strength or courage. It would challenge the very essence of his spirit. Stepping forward, he felt the warmth of the eternal flame itself, a flame said to burn with the fury of the divine and the mercy of the heavens, licking the air around him. The light flickered and danced, casting shifting shadows that seemed to reach out with unseen hands. Eliab knew that to pass this trial, he would need to face not only the flame, but the fire within himself. The first test began as the ground trembled beneath his feet, and from the shadows emerged towering figures clad in armor forged of flame and shadow. Their eyes burned with a fierce light, and their voices rang out in a chorus that echoed across the courtyard. "Guardian, you must prove your worth. Only by embracing the fire that burns inside can you wield the power of the Arkansas." Eliab drew his blade, its edge gleaming in the morning light, and met their challenge. The battle was fierce and unrelenting, each strike met with a counterstrike, as if the very flames themselves sought to consume him. But Eliab fought not with rage, but with purpose, each movement a prayer, each breath a testament to his unwavering faith. As the last of the fiery warriors fell, the eternal flame surged higher, its light blinding and pure. Eliab stepped forward into its embrace, feeling the heat sear through his armor and into his very soul. Visions flashed before his eyes, scenes of the Ark's power used to heal, to protect, to bring light into the darkest places. Yet, with those visions came another, a glimpse of what could be if the flame were wielded without wisdom, without heart. A world scorched by ambition, ruled by fear and despair. Eliab knew then that true power was not in domination, but in balance. With renewed resolve, he knelt before the flame and whispered the ancient vow of the guardian. The fire calmed, folding into a gentle glow that warmed his spirit and mended the wounds inflicted by battle. The trial was complete. As the temple doors opened to the rising sun, Eliab felt the full weight and the full blessing of the covenant settle upon him. He was no longer merely a keeper of the Ark, but its true guardian, bound by fire, faith, and unbreakable will. The final journey awaited, and with it, the fate of all who looked to the heavens for hope. Chapter 15. The Reckoning of Light and Shadow. The sun reached its zenith above the highlands of Karat, casting molten gold across the jagged cliffs and windswept crags. Below, where ancient stones formed a circle untouched by time, the Ark waited. Shrouded beneath veils of silence and shimmering light, it rested on a pedestal of blackened obsidian, as though nestled between heaven and earth. Eliab stood at the edge of the sacred site, his robes singed by flame, his blade dulled by trials, his spirit burnished with the weight of sacred fire. He had crossed deserts of illusion, battled spirits of doubt, and stood within the flame of the Eternal One. Now, the final moment had come, not a battle of swords, but of destiny. The heartstone pulsed against his chest with furious rhythm, like a second heartbeat. Its radiance reached toward the Ark in great invisible threads, weaving together the promises of old with the hope of the present. Yet darkness stirred just beyond the circle of light. Out of the mountain's shadow stepped a figure cloaked in deepest black, bearing a staff crowned with a crystal like a shard of night itself. It was Malek, the last of the high necromancers of the Philistines, once thought lost to time, now drawn by the Ark's awakening. "You have come far, child of Levi," Malek said, his voice like a cold wind slipping through a tomb. "But you are not its master." "I'm not its master," Eliab replied, voice steady. "I am its guardian." Malek smiled, thin, cruel. He raised his staff, and the earth groaned beneath their feet. From the dark crevices spilled shades, warriors long dead, priests twisted by ambition, children of fire and ash. They surged forward, not with swords but with despair, curses, temptation. Eliab stepped into the circle of stone, the hearthstone now blazing with holy fire. With a cry not of war, but of praise, he lifted his hands toward heaven and cried aloud the names of the God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob. The ark pulsed in answer. A blast of light erupted from its surface, shattering the veil between the seen and unseen. In that instant, Eliab saw all. Cherubim with wings of fire guarding the unseen realms, rivers of life flowing from thrones of sapphire, the echo of a voice that once thundered on Sinai. But Malach, consumed by hatred and hunger for dominion, hurled his final curse at the guardian. Shadows tore toward Eliab like a storm of thorns. Eliab did not run. He knelt beside the ark and touched its base with the hearthstone, offering his life, his soul, his final breath, if need be, in covenant. Not for power, he whispered, but for peace. The ark opened, not in form, but in essence, and a great wind swept outward, golden and alive. Light poured through every stone, every tree, every broken bone in the earth. The shadows screamed and vanished like smoke before the morning sun. Malach cried out as the darkness within him unraveled, leaving only dust in the wind. When the silence returned, Eliab stood alone, but not empty. The ark now shimmered with gentle warmth, no longer just a vessel of divine wrath, but of reconciliation. It had accepted him, not as master, but as servant, as guardian. He carried the ark down the mountain, not with soldiers or trumpets, but with songs whispered to the wind. Villages gathered to greet him, and those who looked upon the ark did not tremble, they wept. For the presence of the holy had returned not as judgment, but as mercy. And so the tale of the guardian passed into legend, a tale of fire, shadow, and the light that no darkness could extinguish. Eliab, the Levitical boy turned chosen keeper, had fulfilled his calling. But in the distant hills, beyond the lands of men, the winds whispered still. For where one covenant is sealed, another waits to be born.